All right. So let's see. I think I just met up with Clint and all of that. So we started out on this journey, he and I, and the thing of it all is we are very resistant to change a lot of times. And remember, I had 25 years. Uh, and I'm reminded of the story of Anthony de Mello tells, about the drunk by the River Thames. And he tells the story about him bedding down for the night, covering himself up with newspapers and stuff like that. And so just about when he's about to fall off asleep, it's dark, it's cold, he's by the river, and this Rolls Royce pulls up. And this woman inside rolls down her window and she says, "What are you doing?" And he says, I'm going to sleep. And she said, "There? All night?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Not tonight, you're not." She said, "Charles, you go get him. Get him in the car here." So he goes and gets him and brings him in the car. And they take him out to her house in the country. And they go through the kitchen door, and she said, "There's a little bedroom back there. There's shower, there's this and that. You go in there and you take care of yourself." So, and by the way, Charles will give you a haircut afterward, So that's what happened. He did all of that. And he's laying in there in the bed, and it's nice and warm, and there's a little lamplight there. And he's thinking, my God, how did this happen, And so she comes down for a glass of milk, and she remembers. She sees a light under his door. And so she goes over and taps on the door, and he says, "Come in." And so she's just standing there in the doorway. And you can sort of see through her negligee, there in the doorway. And she said, "Oh, my. You really clean up well. You look so good." And she said, "Did you get enough to eat?" "Oh, yeah, Charles gave me some." "And you look great. Look at that haircut and so and so. And so clean, right?" And he says, "I cannot thank you enough." And she says, "Well, good night." So she starts to leave, and then she turns around. And she said, "Would you like a little company?" And he cannot believe his good fortune, So she starts into the bedroom, and he keeps scooching over in the bed there, and then he falls into the River Thames. He'd been dreaming all along, see, and that's what you and I have been doing, dreaming all along. This friggin' nightmare. And so we're a little resistant to change until we've been thrown into the cold water. Sorry, I had to tell that little story. So anyhow, here, let's see here. Let's say we get down to serious business because we have a lot of ground to cover. So you can hang around a train station all day thinking you're taking a trip, folks, but you ain't taking a trip until you get on that train, right? So, by the way, Clint gave me a prayer. Because I was sober a long time, and I had my routine. And he gave me a prayer from a guy that I knew who lived in Aurora, Colorado, named Don Pritz. Don Pritz was brilliant. He was a storyteller. He always said, "We're storytellers and healers, healers and storytellers. That's who we are." So he was in prison and going to work these steps. And his sponsor said, "Don, you're smart. We need to contrive or concoct a prayer for you where you can set everything aside here. You don't have to throw it away. Just set it aside for now, and so that we can have a new experience." So the prayer was, "Dear God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about this program, and about these steps for an open mind and a new experience of you, of me, of this program, and of these steps." And he said, "Don't forget the amen. The amen is what sets everything in motion. It's an acknowledgement that I just gave this to my Father, in whose trusting hands I can give something today. I'll tell you something. I've come to a place in my sobriety and in life itself that I am never alone anymore. Can't be alone. You know, I'm going to show you something here that became so important for me. Okay. Chuck C. also made this analogy. God is the circle itself. All the little dots in there are people and universes and whatever and blah, 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 blah. Good, God, and life. It's all the same word, okay? Everything in this universe and all the universes belong constitutes God, period. Now, you and I think you can be that dot on the outside of this circle at times. And it's possible as an experience, but it is not reality. You cannot be outside the circle. You know, none of us can be. That is the law. That's just the way it's all constructed. So through that analogy, I was able to discover that I was not alone, you know, and other things along, you know, on my journey, discovering that I was not alone. So we launched into this process here of finding God, and step 2 was so instrumental and so important to me. I was given a few tasks to. By the way, the set aside prayer there, I was to say that every single morning and every single night. I could say other prayers if I wanted to, but don't forget that one. You know, what that enabled me to do was to stay inside here and not get outside of this circle. One of the assignments that I was given was to look over the chapter in chapter 2. I mean, in step 2, to look that over and go through that chapter with a fine-tooth comb, and to take all of the capitalized words there. And if it's a capitalized word, by the way, that means it's a noun. It's important. And the words were like creative intelligence, supreme being, power, God, great reality, so on and so forth. Then Glenn asked me to write down my personal definition of those words, to not give him a textbook definition of those, to just write down what those meant to me down deep inside where I live. So, by the way, I mean, by the time we got to sharing this information, I discovered while I'm looking at it that every single one of those, I had several definitions for each one. And also in every definition, I had the word God. And through looking at that, I realized that, wait a minute here. All the names we have given God down through the centuries, you know, it doesn't matter what you call him. There's only one God. The mail gets forwarded. Call him the great reality. Call him whatever. It doesn't matter what you call him. There is only one God, you know. And oh my God, that was so important for me to find out. And so I'm going to read this to you because I said to you earlier that power is within you. It's also within me. You know, when I realized that the great reality, you know, it says, we found the great reality deep within us. In the last analysis, it says, it's only there that it may be found, you know. So it's not outside of me anymore. I don't pray to anything outside of me. I pray with something that's within me, you know, that indwelling presence, that indwelling power. So you see how we can, in this vast universe of ours, we cannot be alone. We have something within us, that divine spark, that gift to us at the foundation of the universe. It's in every single living person. So if it's in you and me, I want to read you this little story. It's Yvonne's favorite here. Abe, it's about Timmy and Abe, okay? Abe was fiercely independent, even at the age of 85. But after a mild stroke, his son insisted he move in with him. Abe missed going to the park near his old apartment, and one Saturday he set out to find it. When he became disoriented, he asked a young boy where the park was. The boy, named Timmy, said he'd like to take Abe there, but he didn't have time because he was looking for God. He needed to talk to him about why his parents were getting a divorce. Maybe God's in the park, said the old man. I'd like to talk to him too about why he's made me useless. They set off together to find God. At the park, Timmy began to cry about the divorce, and Abe lovingly held the boy's face in his hands and looked him straight in the eyes. Timmy, I don't know why bad things happen, but I know it's not because of you. I know you're a good boy, and your parents love you, and you'll be okay. Timmy says, are you sure? And he says, I'm sure. Timmy gave Abe a big hug and said, I'm so glad I met you. Thanks. I think I can go now. From across the street, Timmy's mother saw them hug, and when the boy came up, she asked in a worried voice, who was that old man? I think he's God. Did he say that? She demanded. No. But when he told me I'm going to be okay, I felt better. Only God can do that. When Abe got home, his son, in a scolding voice, asked, where were you? I was in the park with God. What makes you think you were with God? Because he sent me a boy who needed me. And when the boy hugged me, I felt God telling me I wasn't useless. So you see, we're here for one another. It's what we're here for, to help each other along, to pull one another along, to share my experience, strength, and hope with you in love, to assure you that you're not alone, that we're all in this thing together here. And it's incumbent on all of us to discover this power. And I know something about the generosity of God today, okay? If you don't make the discovery, he will make the discovery. We're in this thing. We're in this realm. We're in God's world here, you know. He will reveal himself to you over and over and over, see? The problem is with us, we can't hardly see it half the time. We don't. We're so blind, you know. That's one of my prayers as well, you know. Please help me see. Please help me hear you today, you know. Here's another little thing. It says, the man whispered, God speak to me in the meadowlark saying, but the man did not hear. So the man yelled, God speak to me, and the thunder rolled across the sky, but the man did not listen. The man looked around and said, God, let me see you. And a star shined brightly, but the man did not notice. And the man shouted, God, show me a miracle. And a life was born, but the man did not know. So the man cried out in despair, touch me, God, let me know that you're here. Whereupon God reached down and touched the man, but the man brushed the butterfly away and walked on. And it says, don't miss out on a blessing because it isn't packaged as you expect. You know? So I pray a lot of times, keep my mind open, keep my eyes open, keep my ears open. Let me see, because Don Pritz, the guy in Colorado, also said, God uses whatever's at hand, Luther. He'll use the next poem, the next music, the next television. I'm not talking about a psychosis here, okay? What I'm talking about is pay attention to your world and what's happening in your world and the benefits that are coming out of it and the generosity of God himself. He's showering it on us every single day. You just have to see it. So when you don't like this person in front of you enough, try to see the God in that person, because that power is in that person just as much as it is within you. Sometimes it's really difficult to see it. People try our patience. We get mad. We cuss. We carry on. We have fights and whatever. This program is fabulous. It takes us to a place of emotional sobriety where I can sit down with you and I can tell you I'm sorry. You know why? I don't want to be at odds with anybody today. I do not want to go to bed tonight with anything on my mind that I didn't take care of during the day. You know, I can't do it. In our 10th step, it talks about promptly. If I will do that promptly. Do I want to do it all the time? No. This old bag over here that lives near to me is just, she really tries my patience a lot. And I finally blocked her on my email, and I blocked her on my phone and stuff like, and then I come full circle to it, to the point that I think, oh my God. So I have to lift the blockage and lift whatever, because I'm in a position of responsibility here. I'm the president, of course. They always give us the keys and give us all the money, right? So I'm the president of the homeowners association here, and like it or not, that's part of my job, so, but anyway, that's, I wanted to read you something else too about having faith, and I've got to tell you something about me anyway. I have tons of faith, tons of it, okay? But I've also gone past faith. I've gone to another place. I've gone to a place of trust, because God either is or he isn't. That's what we find out in this second step, right? He's everything or he's nothing. Which is it? That's the choice that I'm given. So I have to trust this power. And I'll tell you that reason. I have to trust it because I can't see my way. I'm just a little kid at some level. I'm stumbling along here. I don't have the power to get out of whatever I'm into or whatever, So I have to trust this power. I can't see my way. But, we're in a troubled world nowadays. And my idea the other day when I was listening to some politics, which I don't advise anybody to get into nowadays, I'm thinking, wait a minute, God is bigger than all of this, okay? And I trust that. I absolutely trust that. So here's a little thing. I got it on a card. Somebody sent it to me in the mail. It says, the fields were parched and brown. The crops lay wilting from thirst. Local ministers called for an hour of prayer on the town square, asking everyone to bring an object of faith or for inspiration. The townspeople filled the square with anxious faces and hopeful hearts. A variety of objects clutched in prayerful hands, the holy books, crosses, rosaries. When the hour ended, as if on command, a soft rain began to fall. Cheers swept the crowd as they held their treasured objects high in gratitude and praise. One faith symbol seemed to overshadow all the others. A 9-year-old child had brought an umbrella. So see, trust the power. Trust this process. It will not lead you astray. I'm telling you that from my own experience over the last 48 plus years, okay? So, and once you get onto something like this, you can't let go of it. It's too fabulous. You get so excited about it, you can't hardly stand it, And like I said earlier, God uses every single thing that's at hand, He'll use the movie. I love that movie, Contact. That movie Contact with Jodie Foster. And after she's gone on this trip through space and so on and so forth, and they're trying to... James Woods is trying to make her say it didn't happen. Why did you just say it didn't happen, Because she said, because I can't. I had an experience. I can't prove it. I can't even explain it. But everything that I know as a human being, everything that I am tells me that it was real. I was given something wonderful, something that changed me forever, a vision of the universe that tells us how tiny and insignificant and rare and precious we all are, a vision that tells us that we belong to something that is greater than ourselves, that we are not, that none of us are alone. I wish I could share that. I wish that everyone, that if even for one moment, could feel that awe and humility and hope. And then she says, and that continues to be my wish. And that's my wish for all of us today. Again, I want to tell you something. I don't walk out over the water, okay? I am not some superhuman being here, I'm a normal person here, and that's why our program for Al-Anon and alcoholics alike is so important. We have a way to go. If I hurt your feelings, I will beg you to forgive me if I have to. I don't care about pride and all that arrogance crap anymore. I don't care. I want to come out even at the end of the day, So anyway, And I'm here to tell you that once you find, going through that second step in that book and everything here, there's a page on page, I think it's 45 there, that says where and how to find this power. Okay. And then you flip over. It's all in the book. You just got to find it. Open up your eyes and do a little bit of searching. This is a textbook. You just don't get the information through osmosis. You got to get in there and do a little work sometimes. So on page 45, it says where and how to find this power. Over on page 55, it says, remember we had the little 18 to 20 capitalized words, right? Every one of them meant God. One of those words is great reality. And it says here, we found the great reality deep within us. And then it says, in the final analysis, it is only there that it may be found. What a statement. That is a promise. Hold on to that. It will come to you. The consciousness of the presence of God will come to you. That's what these Psalm 100 people were saying in the very beginning of our book. The consciousness of the presence of God was the most important fact in their lives today, and that's why we don't want this book changed. We don't want it rewritten. Yes, we've been to the moon. Who cares? It only says that in Alcoholics Anonymous we predicted that, and it happened. So. We are not outdated, folks. So let's see here. Let's move along here before we get crazy here. Okay, so where am I? Yeah, I'll get carried away here. Okay, so we had Timmy. Oh, yeah. So let's move on to step 3 here, which is so important. And here's one thing that I hear in many meetings, in both meetings, Al-Anon and also Alcoholics Anonymous. They say, oh, it's only a decision. The third step is nothing, blah, 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 blah. Just, it's only a decision. I beg to differ with you. It's not just a decision. It's something very, very pertinent here, okay? When I'm taking people through these steps, I want them to make sure they understand what they're doing here. Because like I said earlier, we are not dealing with a capricious God. We're dealing with something where once we do this, we can never undo it. Once we fully understand what we have done here, we have turned our will and our lives over to this power. And as it was explained to me, it was like firing a gun. That once it's been fired, you cannot unfire it if you fully understand it, okay? So at some level, my life is none of my business anymore. And generally, when I'm working with somebody, and even on Zoom, I'll kneel down with somebody and we'll say this prayer together, because and that's what was done with me. Clint Hodges got down on his knees with me and put his arm around me, and we said it together. He loved me and I loved him. He was like, we were like blood, I got to tell you. So I want people to understand it. And I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, okay? But I go to meetings where people are saying the third and the fifth step all the time. And I don't believe in that, okay? And I'll tell you why. The third step prayer is for a reason. I need to say that prayer. If you notice something about the prayer, it doesn't have an amen at the end of it. And what's happened here is we have an open-ended agreement at some level, And I need to know that I'm still in a state of prayer even when I get up and do a fourth and fifth step. Because every single thing that can rains down during the fourth step and the fifth step, okay? So I don't say that prayer capriciously. I'm not saying don't say it. I mean, try out loud, pray if you want to. But I understand the meaning behind it. I need to know that I'm in a state of prayer. It's like today, the way I understand steps 10, 11, and 12 here is that I'm in a constant state of prayer. When I check in at night, when I review my day, and I go through that process, it's kind of like an open-ended agreement, because I asked God at the very end of that 10th step how does it read, where it says, what corrective measures should be taken? I have asked God a question. What corrective measures should be taken? And if I got up to that point during my 10th step at night, which I do in bed, by the way, I'm laying down there, if I got through that and up to that point, I'm pretty much going to go to sleep at that time. And I believe that God is at work while I'm sleeping, okay? It's sort of like Archimedes, he leaped out of it. Eureka, I found it, His brain was at work, even while he was sleeping. So anyway, and when I wake up in the morning, I've been given a tremendous gift. And that gift is that I would start my day connecting to the power and understanding that I've been through in the power all night. So I'm in a state of what I call a continuum. I'm not talking about being goody-goody, folks. I'm not goody-goody. I make all kinds of mistakes and stuff throughout the day, and I have to apologize and whatever, blah, 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 as time goes on. But, what else? I have to let myself off the hook, too, at some level, because I'm doing the very best I can at all times. I know that when I know better, I will do better. And I'm only given as much as I can handle in any day of anything, of goodness, badness, or whatever. So, anyway, we got into step 4 here, which it warns everybody, that nobody's going to fully recover until they've revealed themselves to somebody else. Like I told you early, my sponsor today knows every single thing there is to know about me. I have no secrets anymore, So I was able to write down all my resentments, my fears, my sex inventory. And you know what? I want to tell you something about the sex inventory. Listen, I woke up with people I wouldn't even have lunch with today, okay? So I had a lot of that going on, a lot of very bad relationships and so on and so forth. And that's not what's important about the sex inventory at all. What the sex inventory reveals is how Luther Wood thinks he should treat another human being in his life. That's what it's all about. It's not about sex, period. Because that number 9 there, it says, what should I have done instead? If you're looking at that guy's list, what should I have done instead? You will be able to read between the lines. You will be able to read underneath here and see what he really needs, and to help him not commit the same thing over and over and over and over, And in my, let me see here if I can find it right off the bat. Oh. Of course, I can't find anything when I'm looking for it, but what it meant at the very end of all of that is for anybody in my life, like Pat Wood, for instance, that I would be considerate and loving and kind. And that's what it's all about. That's like living with another human being, which you guys, again, have shown me over and over and over on how to do, So anyhow, I'm not going to go into all of that at great great detail, except for when I was, I wrote this 4th step as if I were never going to read it to anybody, okay? In other words, every single thing in my life was on that on that paper. I got so upset during it, I thought, I can't stand this. I was 25 years sober. And I was down on the beach one day with one of my sponsees, Sam, and I had tears in my eyes, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to live through this. I'd never written stuff like that down, incriminating stuff down on a piece of paper, you know. And when I related that to Clint, he just laughed. He said, well, that's the idea. You know, all of the old has to go, all of it for the new to come, you know. So he said it all has to die. And so when I got this all on paper and put it in a large manila envelope, I'm not one to get on my knees a lot, you know, because I found out in that second step there that if that divine power, that indwelling power is within me. Clint said something very peculiar to me at that point. He says, do you realize that this ground you're standing on is holy? It blew my mind. And I got it though. If that power, that indwelling power is within me, I'm standing on holy ground. I better be really careful where I take that power going forward, you know, being very, very respectful of that, you know. So anyway, when I got that fourth step completed, I got down on my knees at that point, and I started to cry. And I thank God for the ability to get all of that on a piece of paper. I knew it was all in there, every dirty little crappy piece, and some of the good too, because it says all of it, you know. And so the next morning, of course, on my way over to Clint's house, Elmer, I had this little guy on my shoulder. I call him Elmer. Elmer's the 10% of me that's never going to get it, okay? Oh, this is crap. This is no good. This is stupid. You shouldn't be doing, you know, all that, you know. The main thing with Elmer is he's the 5-year-old driving the car. So I have to take the keys away from Elmer and say, you know what? We're not going to do that, Elmer. We're going to go do this fifth step anyway, you know. So I went over to Clint's house, and he gave me a coffee cup there with coffee in it, and inscribed on the cup is "You Old Dog." And that began my fifth step with Clint that day, you know. And I poured it all out. Then I couldn't look at him sometimes, but I poured every little bit of it out there, you know. And during that, he said to me, at one point in there, he says, "What is the matter with you?" And I started to cry. And I said, "I'm afraid." And he said, "Luther, what are you afraid of?" And I said, "I'm afraid I'm going to be punished." I said, "I've crossed too many lines, Clint. I've done too much. I'm never going to be forgiven, you know." And so he said, "Just a moment." He got up and he went in his office and he got a piece of paper and about fear. And essentially what it said in there, it talks about, you know, I felt like my punishment was going to be this, that I could hear it in you and I could see it in you, but I was never going to be able to get it. And that was going to be my punishment for the things that I had done. I mean, can you imagine that kind of a God at 25 years sober? I mean, give me a friggin' break, you know? So he brought out this paper and we looked at it. And essentially, I went over, I had to answer all the questions on that page, you know. And one of them was like, do I know that the fear is a lie? Do I know that God can remove the fear? You know, and after I said yes to all of these things, you know, we prayed about it. And you know what? It got lifted. All of it got lifted. There's an answer here. It's like when I came off that mountaintop that night, I was healed. I don't know how to say it other than that. I am not a religious person today. If you are, great. I love that. You know, I love to go to church. I love it. I thought all of this was going to be in some huge, magnificent cathedral like St. Patrick's Square in New York. You know, you know, it's right here. When I was looking for God so hard and crying on my way to a retreat over in Sierra Madre, I heard a voice say to me, "I'm in your heart, Luther. It's only there that I may be found," you know? And I have found that to be true. I say to guys all the time that I'm sponsoring, what does your heart say? What does your heart say? You know, that's my barometer. because I know the truth down there. That's where God is. He can't be up here in this head. This head is way too busy. Okay. So anyway, we got rid of that, and then I had to take it to the grave list. And I had something on there I had never, ever told another human being. And I couldn't look at Clint. I could not look at it. And I was reading it. I said, Clint, I slapped a baby and I slapped it so hard, I left my handprint on its face. I was babysitting. I was like 8 years old or 9. And I started to cry so hard. It was the one thing that I had done in my life that I would have given my life, I think, to undo it. But I understand today in Alcoholics Anonymous that if it's of any value to you, I'm required to tell it to you. So he said, stop right there. He said, I've listened to you. We were there from 9 a.m. till 9 that night, okay? He said, I had a lot on my plate. I'm 25 years sober. You gather a lot of dust in the, So he says, listen, I've listened to you all day long. We've had lunch together, dinner and all that, And he says, I want to tell you something. You did not slap that child. You did. But you were only doing what had been done to you. He had heard about the second stepfather. He had heard how he treated me and beat up on me and so on and so forth. And he says, you were only doing what had been done to you. That's what it is, Holy crap. Well, I can't tell you the relief I had. Okay, do I wish it was something I had not done today? Yes. I'm so ashamed of it when I even tell you. But, so if you've done something really nasty and dirty and awful in your life, don't hold it against you anymore. That was really another person doing all that. Once this switch gets flipped in us, there's no road back. We can't go back. There is no way back. There's, like Gertrude Stein said, there is no there. So you ain't going anywhere. We're only going forward, one day at a time. We're on the journey, one day's trip here. So here, okay, so he was listening to my fifth step, and he was writing all the time he was doing it. And then after it was over with, he hands me this paper. He said, these are all the things that you told me, Luther. These are all your, what we'll call character defects. This is your MO. This is how you operated all of your life, And he said, so what I want you to do is take this list and go home with it. I want you to take the book down off the shelf, and I want you to review steps 1 through 5. I want you to see if you approve of the job you've done so far. It's the only time they ask us to do this in the book. And then if you're satisfied with that, I want you to look at this list. I want you to take this list and I want you to turn every one of these really negative ways of doing things and turn it into something fabulous. Go for the gold ring. We're going for the very best, Life is a banquet here, and it's the Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom, not the scraps from the table, okay? So we're going to go for the gold ring here. So I did that. I took all that stuff and I went home and I rewrote it. And I came for the gold ring, And so he said, when you've done that, you bring it back here and we'll sit down with it. So I did that. He said, you got your list with you? And I said, yeah. He says, got your old list? And he said, yes. And he says, give me the old list. And so I gave him the old list. And he says, are you willing to have all these taken away right now? And I said, yes. And he crumpled them all up in a ball and threw it in the trash. Almost freaked me out, And then we got down on our knees, him and me, and he put his arm around me, and we said that 7th step prayer. which concluded the open end where we didn't say amend on step 3, and we said amen at step 7. So we completed a segment, like 1, 2, and 3 are little units. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are units, and then that laid the path open for steps 8 and 9, Again, we're talking about recovery. We're talking about emotional sobriety and how we got there through this gateway, and that 5th step was so important because it was the cornerstone in the arch through which we passed to freedom, So it was very, very important to withhold nothing, for the first time in my life, to lay it all out there, And so anyway, that's where we went on, and so we said that little prayer on 7 where it's like, take me, Father, just as I am, warts and all. So I can see me. I know who I am. I know where I came from. I know the impossibility of me being here today with you, talking about things that are way beyond me, So take me, warts and all, So then I was to prepare a list of amends, and I was to take that out of my 4th step. And I was also to go back through old address books and things if I had them, but to search out through my past and see if there was anything that I wanted to clean up. And I got to tell you something, I had 62 amends. But that's because I had compiled so many things along the way with 25 years of sobriety, plus all of my life. Come on, in all of the people that I, still today, once in a while, something will come up. And I'll go to tell you something. This is one of my favorite steps because oh my God, it was so rewarding, I guess is the word for it, I got so much from it, I was to take 3x5 cards, and I wrote the person's name up in the left-hand corner of my card and put their phone number up there. Over in the right-hand corner of the 3x5 card, I was to put a minus sign, and then in the body of the little card, I was to write the amends here, and I had a cheat sheet as well that I was to call the person, make an appointment, and it was not in a personal or private location. It was in a public place for obvious reasons, probably for me anyway, so I didn't wind up in bed with somebody. And anyway, I was to call that person up and ask them if I could meet with them. I had amends to make with these people. So I did that. Like I told you earlier, I made amends with my sister and my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law wouldn't cry if you stood on his foot for an hour, and he had tears streaming down his face. And he said, Bo, you got to stop this. And I said, I can't stop this. I have to finish. I have to tell you. I have to ask you to forgive me. So I went on with it. I went down to my mother and father. I got to make amends with them before they died. I sat there with my mother, and she kept looking at me, and she kept listening to me. I had life with them, as far as I'm concerned, was a nightmare on their part. With me, it's just one thing after another. And when I asked my mother that poignant question, "What can I do to make this right?" She looked at me and she said, "You can hang around with these people. You stay with them. They brought me my boy back." All the money in the world can't buy that sentence. It can't. My mother and dad forgave me. They were so generous because they saw a new person. They didn't see that old wreck. My mother was standing in a doorway when talking on the phone with somebody whose husband was drunk all the time. And my mother looked at me. She was looking right in my eyes. I could hear the other person on the phone. And she said, "I used to know somebody like that, but he's dead now." My God, you tell me about the gifts that we're given here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I had a lot of financial amends and stuff. I had stuff to do. I went about making those as best I could. When I didn't have the money, I made an agreement. I don't care if it was $10 a month. It didn't matter. Little or much is big when you're in God's world, okay? It doesn't matter. 15 cents and $15 million are the same thing to the infinite. It doesn't matter. It just is what it is, period. So I went around trying to make amends and stuff. And there were places like the markets, the grocery market I worked in. I stole money out of the till. I was given a job by a guy named Pete Espinosa, and how I repaid him is I stole money out of the till. Those places aren't even in business anymore. I don't know if I drove them out of business or what, but but they're, so I had a little trouble finding them. Let's see, where am I?
Pete Espinosa.
Yeah, I know where I am. Just thinking here for a minute, guys. I don't want to get ahead of me. I don't want to miss anything. So the money that I stole, I figured, I don't know how accurate it was, but I figured $1,500, and that was probably high. Because a dollar went a long way in those days, So I kept collecting this money. I didn't know what to do with it. And I got it all collected, and I started talking to Clinton. I said, I don't know what to do with this money. And I said, shall I give it to Clancy, for the mission? And then I thought, no, I don't want anyone to know where it came from, And then I thought about Boys Town, blah, 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 and all that. So then, I believe that God lives in Bel Air, because every time I would drive over 405, and I get to Mulholland Drive, I'd hear a voice. So I'm driving over. I just passed Mulholland, and this voice says, "Dry Herb Coddington." I thought, Herb Coddington? Herb Coddington is a little minister down in South Carolina, in Clinton. My mother used to give them money, and she bought an altar for them, and so on and so forth, And but I've learned to be obedient here. And I got on the phone, and I called Herb up, and I said, Herb, Luther Wood, you may not know me or remember me or whatever, but you certainly knew my mother, because she gave them quite a little bit of money from time to time, And he said, I remember you very well, because I did meet him one summer when I was down there. And I said, here's the thing. I said, I've got $1,500 that I need to give away. And for some reason or another, I'm supposed to call you. And I said, this is not an estimable act. I don't want you to send me any income tax, blah, 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 or whatever. I can take this off. This is not an estimable act. I'm trying to right a wrong that I did. And so I said, so I don't need any correspondence from you at all, after this, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I was thinking about something else here. Is why I got distracted. I just wanted to show you this, because I just wanted you to know who you're dealing with here. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's me in the park with the bottle. That's Pensacola, Florida, when I was in the Navy. Can't you see this guy stand? I don't even know who they are standing up there. It's like saying, ain't this a bitch? Look at this. So, let me make it a little bigger. Anyway, I just wanted you to know who you're dealing with here this morning. And so anyway, back to Herb Coddington, So I sent him the $1,500, and fully never expecting to hear from him again, except I got this little card from him here a while later, and it says, this is back in 1999, he says, greetings. Thanks so much for your very generous and timely gift. it was a real boost to us, not only because of the amount, but because your interests so closely corresponded to the needs here. Let me illustrate. I just placed an order for 95 French language books to a bookstore in Montreal for teachers in Haiti. Okay. One of the stipulations I had for her was you must buy somebody some textbooks, because when I lived in Paris, I stole textbooks from the woman who loaned me her apartment, or rented me her apartment, I should say. And there was no way, I've tried to find her. There was no way to find Nicole. I wish you were on the screen this morning. Nicole Schwartz, if you are, please put your name in the chat now, how I can get a hold of you, because I stole these textbooks, and everything. So he placed an order for 95 French language books to a bookstore in Montreal for teachers in Haiti. They had gone down to Haiti because it's so poor and so whatever on a missionary thing, to help these people. And he says, we will have 8 rather poor Dominicans joining us for summer camp here in Clinton in June. We're covering their expenses, which will likely include clothing and shoes, okay? And I had asked him to give somebody a pair of shoes, because when times were hard, I put a boy's new shoes in a lake and ruined them. They were leather, And I got a black eye for it too, by the way. But nevertheless, there was no way for me to make that amends to somebody about his shoes, So include clothing and shoes. And he says, our folks going to Haiti and the Dominican Republic are in need of assistance to purchase tickets. During our summer camp in Clinton, we subsidized registration fees for those unable to pay, etc. I think you get the point. We'll keep you posted, he says. They began to publish a little published thing at his church. And he put all that in there, but they didn't put my name or anything in there like that, because I did not want any credit at all or anybody to ever thank me for anything, period. So I got another little thing from him that says, thanks again for your investment in our summer ministries. And it says, your shoe idea caught fire. We took 100 pair to impoverished kids in Haiti and 100 books to 90 teachers there. We took clothing to kids in the Dominican Republic and had productive ministry in the Clinton area as well. See enclosed article. By the way, they started a little newspaper. And it's all in here, everything that they've done here. And, and what occurred to me was that so much good could come from the bad. So God uses whatever's at hand. He doesn't care what it is, and what we think is so awful and so bad, and the sins, if you will, the things that we wish we'd never done, have a benefit down the road, if they're of any value at all. So I got another little card from him. Mind you, I told him not to send me anything, right? Thanks for your kind and exciting letter. It's great to hear what the Lord is doing through you. Enclosed is a note I have mailed out to some who were interested in our summer programs, And so that was my communication with him, except for, I will tell you this. One year, Pat and I owned some property down there in Clinton, South Carolina, that my mother gave me. And it was a beautiful, several acres of a wooded area, and with a stream running through it, by the way, and everything. But I never intended, nor do I intend, to live in South Carolina. And, I would, but I live out here. So anyway, we needed a tax write-off one year, and I went over here and on the 31st of December and deeded that property over to him, And what they did with it is eventually they sold it, and they built a huge addition on their church with it. So, we don't ever know what we're doing. Here we're back to that word trust again. We have to trust the power. The power knows what it's doing, Yeah, I can't see what it is. Now I don't know what's going on. But but it does. It knows, All I have to do is be obedient. Now, I want to tell you something. It isn't that God's taken over my life, for crying out loud. I'm an individual. I'm a real live human being. I can do as I damn well please. But when I get that little nudge from that voice that I know, that voice that was on that mountaintop, that voice that told me that God lived in Bel Air. By the way, the funniest thing, Pat was really, really sick one year. I'm sitting up with her and we're going over. Is everybody okay with this? I don't want you to get fidgety, but we're not going over necessarily, but we're not taking a break. But if you want one, just somebody raise hands or whatever, and I'll stop. But anyway, I woke up one morning and Pat was out on the sofa, and she had her knees drawn up. And I said, "What's the matter with you?" She says, "I don't know. I've been this way since 1:30 this morning." And she said, "I'm in such pain. I can't stand it." And I said, "Do you have an appendix?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "You have appendicitis." I called their doctor on the phone. He said, "Get her over to the hospital right away." So I got her over to the hospital. They were so slammed and so busy. We laid in the hallway for 7 hours. She got so sick, she threw up all over her place in that bed. There was nobody to clean it up. I cleaned it up. I want to tell you something. That's not me. I don't have that kind of strength. I can't stand to see vomit. I can't stand to see whatever and sores and blah, 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 But so here's principle before personality. Just like when she prayed for me, principle before personality, I cleaned her up. I put clean bedclothes on her, and we waited, and they took her in. Then they x-rayed her and all of that, and they found out she had a huge mass. I'm saying she has appendicitis, you need to operate and blah, 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 blah. Well, God knows, my sponsor always said, God knows his business, okay? So they didn't do that for 7 hours. What happened is that thing gathered itself into a ball and it moved. It moved from where the appendix is to the middle of her stomach. And what I'm getting to is they had to do an exploratory operation, which they cut down the middle. Hideous, hideous scar, by the way, And it was right there in the middle. Had they cut it over there where the appendix was, they would have missed it. Seconds and inches. God's finger at work again one more time in our lives. Anyway, and the long and short of it is they sent her home finally because it was going to take a long time to heal. And they sent her home with an open wound because you can't sew that up. If you do, it would fester up again and explode and she would die, from it. So they sent her home. Now, we had a nurse come who was way more interested in her hairdo and her fingernails than taking care of my wife. So I fired her. I had a job, 2 cars to run, and I did that. I went to work every day, but I came home 3 times a day and took care of her. We think we can't do these things. I washed her body 3 times a day. I cleansed it and sanitized it and put it back together with a compress over it, because it wasn't, and it began to heal on its own. And every day I would say to her, "You look a little better today." I mean, she was awful. You know what gangrene smells like? I'm going to tell you, you could hardly get near it, But I got to tell you, and she did. She looked a little, damn little, but she looked a little better every single day, Toward the end of it, when I was taking care of her, she says, "Oh, Louie, you're so good to me." And I said, she's got a great sense of humor. I said, "Well, you would do the same for me." And she said, "Well, I would hope so. I would get you the best help money could buy." You know what? I got to tell you a story about this because it finally healed up, and all of that. We were living over Rancho Mirage. We had a beautiful home over there. Since we moved down to this little condominium, it's just downsizing. But anyway, I was coming, we had a huge master suite with bathrooms and all of that. So I was coming down the hallway in the bathroom, and she was coming out of the shower. And when she saw me, she leaned over and tried to hide the scar. It was hideous, I'm telling you. And I said to her, stop right there. I said, let me tell you something about that scar. And I said, it doesn't mean the same thing to me as it does to you. I said, all the years we've been married, I thought you could do better than me. That was my opinion of me, I said, but when I went through what I did for you and how I cared for you, fed you the best food money could buy and took care of you, I said, you can't find another one better than me. I want you to know that. So I said, so that's what it means to me. You don't have to run away or try to hide it from me because I don't care. It's only a shell anyway. We're all walking around in a shell. I'm glad she's not on this morning. I don't know if she'd appreciate me telling all this or not. So,
No, she's not.
So I got more letters from Herb, after I gave him the property. Thank you for your lovely card. Thank you for remembering us during this time of the year. That's when I send him the deed to that property, Let me take this opportunity to catch up with you on a few things. He talks about my cousin down there. And then he says, the property so generously made available to the church has recently sold, and the realtors are sorting through the paperwork at this time. The proceeds will be applied to an addition to the church facility. Thank you so very much. And then he says something. He says, do you remember the generous gift you gave for books and shoes for Haitian children several years ago? That turned out to be seed money for a growing involvement in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. We go down now often to do teacher and pastor seminars. Blessings, Herb. So see, these are the people that we affect as we go down through life. And we may think it's inconsequential. We may be thinking that we don't have much impact on people. I have news for you. We have great impact on people. I have found out that a curved lip, turned down lip or whatever, has a tremendous impact. I try to say hello to people. I walk a lot, When I'm walking, I say hello. They may look down or whatever. They've got their masks on or whatever. I don't care what they're doing, okay? I say hello, good morning, enjoy your day, blah, 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 and go on and keep moving, We never know what kind of effect we have on people, So, and there's something about us, I have to tell you, that once we've gotten onto this thing, I could be standing in the grocery market, minding my own business, when this lady next to me will say, she will start pouring out her soul to me. It's as if she sees a caller or something, telling me about her grandson, and he's a drug addict, and he's this. Now, and I'm just standing there, I'm like verklempt, and very seldom do I ever break my anonymity to people, but there are those occasions when I'm inclined to fish out my card and say, you have him call me, or I'll fish out Alcoholics Anonymous's card and I'll say, you have him call this number. Somebody is there that will understand and somebody that can help, So anyhow, that's where we are with all of that. I was telling you about Pete Espinosa earlier. And again, when I was going over the 405 freeway and I crossed over Mulholland, near Bel Air, I think I'm done with this amends, this $1,500, with the church. So then I hear this voice and it says, what about Pete Espinosa? He's the one you stole the money from in the market. I'm thinking, God, I don't know where Pete Espinosa, this is how cooperative I can be sometimes. I don't know where he is. So, but the voice says, try the internet. Well, thank Google, right? So I get on the internet and I find 5 Pete Espinosas. Peter, I thought he never went by Peter, so I crossed through that right away. I found 3 others, and one of them was up in Oxnard, California. I called them. They were Spanish. So I determined that's not him, because they didn't speak very good English. So then I wrote a letter to one that didn't have an address. It didn't have a phone number. So I get this call on a Friday night on my Instagram, says, Luther, Pete Espinosa, give me a call. So I called him up and he says, Luther, how can I help you? And I said, well, I need to come and see you if I possibly can, And so we made an appointment, and I went down there on a Monday. Living down in Leisure World, and in Mission Viejo. And I go down, rap on the door, and he and his wife were there, and we all sat at the kitchen table, and we're talking and chatting about people we know and blah blah blah. And then he says, "You remember Jim Allen?" And I said, "Oh, the supervisor? Yeah, I remember Jim." And he said, he got fired for stealing money. I thought, oh my God. And I said, Pete, I have to tell you, because Dee, his wife, had said, why are you here? And I said, that's the reason I'm here, Pete. And I said, when I needed a job, you gave me one. And how did I repay you? I stole from you and so on. I'm here today to see if you were responsible for any of that. And if you were, I'm here to pay you back for that, this morning. He looked at me, big, handsome Mexican guy, great big eyes like Albert Einstein, big black eyes. And he looked at me and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, Luther Wood, my opinion of you has shot up about 1,000%, since you walked in that door today. And I got it. I got the thing that's so magical to all of us, that when we go out to do these things, amends are intuitive. You have to be very alert at what's going on here. When I finished my amends with my mother that day, and I was up at the corner of Marine and Pacific Coast Highway, I hear the voice again, go down to the Department of Parks and Recreations and make your amend to the city of Manhattan Beach. Every time I drove through that city, I remembered when I was 15 years old, drunk, hanging out of or 16, hanging out of a tree there and falling down in the flower beds and everything's with 15 other guys, And I thought, darned if I'm not. So I went down to the Department of Parks and Recreation and City Hall down there. And the woman at the desk said, can I help you? And I said, could I see the administrator for the Parks and Recreation? She said, she's busy right now, but if you'll sit down and wait, she'll be with you in a moment. So in just a few minutes, this little blonde-haired girl, about 20 years old, hangs her head around the corner and said, Mr. Wood, I can see you now. So I got up there and I sat down in her chair. Her office was a little tiny cubicle. It was crammed with puzzles and games and stuff. There was hardly any room for anybody to sit there, And she was working on stuff at her desk there. And she said, how can I help you? And I said, well, maybe I can help you. And so I related the story. And I said, we destroyed property. And I said, I don't believe in that today. And I'm here to make retribution, for that. And I said, so I brought $200 with me. By the way, by now, tears are streaming down her face, And I'm here to make restitution for that, And she looked at me and she said, Mr. Wood, I was having a really bad day till you came. And, I got it. Amends are for us. Yeah, we get clean. We get all cleaned up from it. We feel good down deep inside where we live, but they're also for those people, And I remember when I made my last amends to my sister-in-law in Chicago, to her and her little girls, and it was obvious nobody had ever told them they were sorry for anything, period. And we sat there, and I finished my amends with them. You know what? The most fabulous thing happened to me. When I was given the amends to do, when I was given that job, I was given a prayer because amends are intuitive. I don't just make up my mind where I'm going to make an amend or not. Okay, I have to wait for that nudge, and so every morning I was to take out my stack of cards and see which ones I was willing to make and not. I had taken that minus sign and put a plus on all the ones that I was going to make amends for. And anyway, I'd look at those cards and I'd say the prayer, "Dear God, please take me to my next amends and give me the power to make it." You know, that was every morning and every night. And then it was completely intuitive. I didn't get to make a decision. I had to wait for the nudge to come, you know. So I had to say that prayer every single morning and every night. When I made that last amends to my sister-in-law in Chicago, you know what? When I went to bed that night, I didn't have to say the prayer. And I thought, oh my God, I'm innocent. Come on, I was 65 years old. How do you be innocent at 65 years old? I knew that I would put more stuff on the blackboard of life, of course. But in that moment in time, I had done every single thing that I had promised I would do. I was innocent. I can't relate how that feeling is, but I'm telling you, it's one you cannot afford to miss. It's too good, too delicious. So you guys want a 5-minute break, to go pee or something? Or you want one? Let's take 5. Or how much more? Okay, we'll take a break till 11:30 out here. You want to come back then? Is that okay?
That's fine, Luther. Thank you.